I'm Ann Kramer. As we always say, the best job in the world. I get to chair the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education and the Director for Americas for IBM's Corporate Citizenship and Corporate Affairs. And today's program that we have for you for this Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education's forum is so significant. I always live in serendipity, and yesterday and Monday I was working with colleagues from the U.S. Chambers Institute for Competitive Workforce and Business Civic Leadership Center, which has a business education network. And we kept coming back to that crux of the intersection called middle school. What do we do with middle school? Folks are really high on early ed. Folks are getting it on high school completion. We're beginning to understand access and college readiness and maybe even career readiness. But what do we do with that intersection called middle school? So today, thanks to our colleagues from AT&T, whom we'll thank very appropriately in a few minutes, we get a chance to talk about that, listen to some results, and see some extraordinary proven practices. But first, I do want to both thank and acknowledge and allow our wonderful guests, Havana Sun, Jamila and Renee Herrera, and introduce a very good friend of mine, Susan McQuaid from Young Audiences of the Woodruff Arts Center, who will formally introduce Young Audiences. And I think for all of us, today is also a special day for them. Our other dear friend, Virginia Hapner, who's been the interim, is leaving today. And last Wednesday was Sharice Williams, who's one of our buddies because she was head of Posse and a part of the partnership, has become the new director, executive director and lead for Young Audiences. So as we all say, it's all in the family. And we're so thrilled for Sharice, thrilled for Young Audiences and all that they do with and for us in education. So with that, Miss Susan McQuaid, I'd love to have you. She is, I love it, the director for Young Audiences Enterprise Education Initiative, who will formally introduce our guest, Havana Sun, and talk a little bit about Young Audiences. Thank you, my friend.
Good morning. Thank you, Ann and Dr. Dollinger and everyone at the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education. As Ann said, I'm Dr. Susan McQuaid, the Director of Enterprise Education Initiatives at Young Audiences Woodruff Arts Center. And I could go on for 5 minutes to explain to you what that means, but it means that I have one foot in Young Audiences education programs and another foot that I need a whole bunch more feet. It goes to the High Museum of Art, the Alliance Theater, and the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. Also, prior to this position, I taught middle school for 21 years, general music, choral music, and reading. I'm so pleased to be spending the morning with you, introduce our organization and these fabulous artists to you. Young Audiences' mission is to transform the lives and learning of young people through the arts. We work with professional artists in Georgia to deliver arts in education programming that ranges from assembly programs, field trips, and long-term residencies. There is no better example of the wonderful artists we work with than Havana Sun. Cuban native Renee Herrera is a seasoned veteran of Cuban symphonies and bands, a recording artist, and an accomplished composer and arranger. His wife and partner, Jillian Herrera, uses her background in classical music in concert with her Cuban roots to create an intoxicating and soulful sound all of her own. Havana Sun plays authentic Latin rhythms such as salsa, merengue, son, cha-cha, and boleros. Young Audiences partners with schools to serve the schools with the level of programming that suits their needs and supports the already great work that is taking place. Last year, Young Audiences artists helped reach well over 500,000 students throughout the state of Georgia. In addition, Young Audiences has furthered its commitment to arts-integrated approaches to teaching by rolling out a literacy suite of programming which provides K-12 students the opportunities to learn through the arts and grasp key concepts in literacy. I invite you to learn more about Young Audiences and our programs by visiting www.yawac.org or by helping yourself to some of the materials that are out at the registration table. And now I'd like to present to you once again Havana Sun.
young audiences. And I want to take you on a little mini tour to the Latin American country of La República Dominicana. Everyone say for me, La República Dominicana. Very good. Let's try again, a little slower, and in English. The Dominican Republic. Very good. Now they have a style of music in the Dominican Republic that when you hear it played, you normally see this instrument being played. This is called a guira. Everyone say guira. Now, this is a very fast style of music. It's one of the fastest in Latin America. And I'm going to need all of your help on this next song, because the name of it is El Baile del Perrito, which means the dance of the little dog. So I'm going to need everyone here to bark like dogs. Go. That's good. You're almost as good as my kindergartners. Go ahead. Come on, let me hear them. There we go. Oh, but I almost forgot. These are not American dogs. They don't speak English. They speak Spanish. So they're going to say something that sounds a little bit more like this. How? Let's go. How? Here we go. When I point at you, I want to hear those dogs barking. Here we go.
we'd be barking and dancing. Jillian and Renee, thank you so much. Susan McQuaid, Barbara O'Brien, Amy Rosenberg, our colleagues from the Woodruff Arts Center and Young Audiences. Wouldn't you like that in your school, your child's school, your grandchild's school, your neighbor's school, any school, Young Audiences for you. Thank you so much. Today we're so pleased to have our good friend and our colleagues from AT&T represented today by my personal, very, very, very wonderful friend Judy Agerton, who is Regional Vice President for Georgia for External Affairs. She, with Steve Dollinger, our President and CEO of the partnership, will come forward for what is, to me, a wonderfully significant presentation. Judy and Steve. Woohoo! Thank you, Donna.
Well, good morning. We are thrilled to be here today. Dr. Dollinger and Madam Chair, thank you for hosting us today in this very worthwhile project. AT&T employs over 22,000 people in the state of Georgia alone, and most of us have children. I actually have 4, 2 in college here in Georgia and 2 in high school. The work that you are going to hear about today was funded by AT&T. We have been proud sponsors of this initiative and with a partnership for over 12 years. The corporate drivers for AT&T are stemming the dropout rate in middle and high school. So this particular project was very dear and close to our education drivers. Dr. Dollinger has never been bashful in asking for help on key initiatives that he might have, and this year is no exception. So I'm actually here today to announce that AT&T is going to sponsor another project with a sponsorship, twofold. First of all, to help further the education reform strategies and helping to drive the strategies for our children of today who will be the leaders of tomorrow. The other area that we're going to be funding is another research project for high school this time. We're going to take a look at the graduation rate in Georgia as compared to graduation rates in other parts of the country. So today I'm here to announce that we're going to be funding these 2 projects at a level of $50,000 for this organization next year, and that we appreciate the work that the partnership does for Georgia, for the children, and for the business community, and we look forward to the research that will be conducted next year. So thank you, Dr. Dollinger and Madam Chair, for all that you do for the children of Georgia, and as we work forward in 2012 with you.
Woohoo! Thank you, Judy. Let's get
Well, thank you, Judy, and thank you, AT&T. That's part of what partnerships are all about, to be able to continue this good work. I'll talk a little bit more about the middle school research, the high school research we did 2 years ago, and then what we're looking at in the future in just a few minutes. Briefly, though, there are some things that rank more important than others, and when you heard a little applause back there when Neil Shorthouse introduced himself, it was a personal pleasure to see Neil come in the room, albeit late today. For those of you that know Neil, who's the Executive Director of Communities and Schools, he's been fighting a tough battle lately with cancer. And as he walked in this morning, I told him he looks the best I've seen him in months. So let's all give Neil a round of applause. Glad to have you back, Neil. Okay, quickly, I want to go over, let me jump back first, though, and thank the Woodruff Arts Center as a larger mother organization and young audience for being with us today. This actually started several years ago. I used to be on the board for Young Audiences and was really pleased when Joe Bankoff came on to run the overall Woodruff Arts Center. Arts have been an important part of the Dollinger family for years and years, and in any position I've had as a leader where I could impact some change, back to being a high school principal in Fairfax, Virginia, being a superintendent in Fulton, and trying here at the partnership, how can we leverage the arts? So Joe Bankoff and I were talking about that, and then last year we really launched this better partnership with the Georgia Partnership and the Woodruff Arts Center by Joe hosting a dinner for our bus trip last year. Many of you have joined us in the past, and as we travel across an area, this time we happen to be close to Metro Atlanta, there's some organization, a chamber or economic development organization, will host us for dinner typically. And Joe did that at the Woodruff Arts Center. paid for the whole thing. And then I said, gosh, Joe, it would be so neat to be able to showcase some of the young audience performers. He said, that would be good. Who would you like? And I said, Divas would be wonderful. And of course, we had them. And they are 3 women who live in DeKalb who are outstanding singers. So we were able to get another kind of art today that we can kind of see how, with language arts, with science and math, the integrated method of teaching those subjects with art can be even more powerful than those subjects on their own. So we're glad today to continue that partnership with young audiences, and hopefully that you can think of some ways that your community can do that also. So my thank you to them and what may be yet another strong partnership. So quickly, what's in your packet? I'll go through this with you and explain it just real briefly. Of course, you've got the agenda for today. You've got the bios for the moderator and the panelists. We give you the lengthy bio here, so as we get into the program, we just do that quickly and try to stay on time. Although the full research report for the middle school is on our website, we give you a quick 2-pager, just a summary piece here. That will be available also electronically. If you'd like to have more of these, you can get them yourself, but just to give you a little taste of that. And then a list of our education policy fellows for this year. We started several years ago. Actually, we were courted by a group out of Washington called Institute of Educational Leadership that sponsors policy fellow programs across the country. And we held focus groups. In fact, our moderator today, Alan, was in those focus groups, as was Amy Mast, who is here. They're fellow alums from other states, I think both from D.C. actually. We came to the conclusion that it is time to have a Policy Fellows program in Georgia, and we hosted that. So we're starting now our new class. They'll be coming together next month for a reception in their first set of classes. It'll be spread out over the year. And several classes, during the year that focus on just education policy. We have great speakers. And since the partnership is nonpartisan, we make sure we bring in voices from different perspectives. And of course, the class is made up of voices of different perspectives, so we get some really good conversation. If you'd like to be in a class in the future, look at our website next spring when we start advertising, but we'd love to have you think about that. But you can see the list of our new fellows, and it's like us. It's like the partnership. It's like this audience today. It's a diverse group, not just racially and by gender, but by occupation. We like to have the business, education, community, foundation groups all represented there. I know we have at least a half a dozen fellows in the upcoming class. Would they stand? Fellows in the class of 2012 coming up, and then fellows that are alum from past years. Would you please stand? Let's give our fellows a round of applause. The person who facilitates these classes and brings in the speakers and facilitates the conversation is our Director of Policy and Research. Susan Walker, who introduced herself a few minutes ago with the Governor's Office, had been doing that. But now we will have our new Director of Policy and Research, Dr. Dana Rickman, do that. Dana introduced herself. I'd like you to make sure you know who that person is. Dana, stand up. This is a person who will be doing our policy and research. Welcome to Dana. After we hired Dana, she goes, "Oh, I do that too? Good." All right. There is a flyer here for our bus trip in October. There'll be information on our website about the second week of September. So if you'd like to join us this year, we're going to break out a metro area where we've been kind of hovering the last couple of years based on our theme. Our themes have been innovation that leads to results, and a lot of schools that are creative and innovative are charters, and a lot of those good schools were in Metro Atlanta. One year it was looking at IE Squared and charter systems, and many of those schools are in the metro area. But this year we're going to go out east and southeast, so a little longer ride for us, and that means we can go to fewer stops. But these are going to be some outstanding schools that are really making a difference. You can see the theme is schools are changing culture, building community, and reaching excellence. So that's going to be fun for us. And then if you're not on our distribution list and you'd like to be, so that you can get invitations to these kinds of meetings, notices about publications when they're coming out, please fill this out and give it to us on your way out so that we can maintain communication with you. By the way, if you were on our distribution list, you received information that today's meeting is being video streamed live. It doesn't mean you have to watch your behavior, but it is going to be interesting to see how that works out for us. When we sent the notice out, we had one of our regular attendees say, "Great, I can watch you from Chicago." So I'm anxious to see if she sends us in a question. But Bill just told me we have 25 people signed on already. So that's going to be interesting to see how that can expand. I hope not detract from our live audience, but expand people who couldn't come live. They can work that into their day and still get the information on policy or research that we typically share here. When you came in, there was a lot of information outside on the table. If you didn't have a chance to pick that up on your way in, you may want to think about it. We have our top 10 issues to watch for this year. We're in the midst of, Dana's already working on the top 10 issues for next year. So you may want to pick up one of these copies while the hard copies are still available. Of course, it's available online. There also is our annual report, which kind of gives a summary of all the things that we do. Young audiences materials, if you got really excited about this and like to see how you could take that back to school systems that you know about. And information from Voices for Georgia's Children. They're a good partner of ours, and we like to support some of their efforts, so I think you ought to pick up something that they have there. Okay, let me segue into the program for today. A couple years ago, we did a research project we call it the 8510. We wondered if there are any high schools in Georgia that had increased their high school graduation rate at least 10 percentage points over 5 years and got to 85%. We didn't want schools that were already at 95% that might be an academy that could draw in kids on their own, but we wanted to see growth over time. And out of 300 some high schools, 15 popped up. And Dr. Donna O'Neill, our primary researcher, worked with national experts, got a group of questions, strategic questions, went into all those 15 high schools, interviewed them, and then collated that information, and we published that into our report, and found some real interesting pearls that made up these 15 high schools. They're all over the state, rural, urban, suburban, small and large, more racially diverse or less, but these threads went through. Well, Judy with AT&T, they know what research is about, and they really do look at education reform in a systemic way. So when we were talking about doing something with middle school, they really encouraged us, almost pushed us to do the middle school research. So Donna will talk more specifically about how she structured that in a minute when they're on the panel, but that led us to some similar findings. What we like about that is that for middle school principals and their staff who are working so hard on these issues, it gives us several things. One, it can give them confirmation that they're on the right track. It's a long haul for education reform. I can remember talking to CEOs who were going for the Baldrige International Award, and I talked to them, how do you work over such a long period of time to achieve that award? And it's the same thing that superintendents and middle school principal leaders do, and that's to celebrate their successes, but keep looking and moving forward for a long time to sustain that journey. Well, this confirms what they're doing is right. If they're still looking for solutions, it'll give them some new ideas. Or maybe even say, hey, wow, we didn't think about that as we keep analyzing for continuous improvement. But another opportunity, and that is for today, is to celebrate those successes, to give them a pat on the back for the hard work that they've done and the success. So I'm going to call the names of the principals, the schools and counties, and then if they have team members, which you already heard, there are a lot of them here, just stand up. You can hold your applause till I go through all the schools, and we'll give them a warm round of applause. So, starting off, from Alton Cruz Middle School in Gwinnett, Principal Vince Boda. The Fulton Science Academy in Fulton County, Keenan Senior and the team. Rising Star Middle School from Fayette County, Principal Lynn Patton. Riverwatch Middle School in Forsyth County, Kathy Carpenter is the principal. Forest Park Middle School, Clayton County, Jamil Miller Brown is on our panel. Morrow Middle School in Clayton County, Principal Greg Curry. Risley Early College Academy in Glenn County, Sinitra Hayward. Lindley Middle School in Cobb County, Sandra Irvin. Union County Middle School, of course, in Union County, Donnie Kelly is the principal. Washington Wilkes Middle School in Wilkes County, Bill Pendry. Lumpkin County Middle School in Lumpkin County, Rick Connor. And Logan Middle School in Walton County, Russell Brock is on our panel today and his team. Let's give them all a warm round of applause. Outstanding work by a lot of educators. It is a long haul, and when sometimes the reports that come out to the public are not positive, it makes that journey even more challenging for the long haul. So I know, having started out as a middle school educator, middle school math teacher a few decades ago, I know that working with that group of youngsters is challenging in of itself. But if you can harness their energy, you can do some great things, and obviously these schools have been able to figure that out. Okay, I want to get us started now on the reason we really came today. We'll have the format, as you can see, that Alan's going to give us a picture. Alan Richard, as he mentioned when he introduced himself, used to be at the SREB. He's a staff member, going to be a staff member with, gee, I've lost that, Alan, right here real quickly. Oh, Hager and Sharp. His communication skills are going to take him to Washington, D.C. with this national corporation, but he's ready for that kind of a job. He's done a great job for a number of years with SREB. In fact, he was not only on a focus group for us for EPFP, but we reconnected recently in Nashville, where he was on a panel there for a Rural Education Summit. And we were talking about issues there, and I said, gosh, Alan, you do such a good job, and you know the big picture. Would you please come back home and help us do some stuff in the backyard? And he said, of course. Alan's going to give us that big picture. SREB has been working on this as well. We'll be releasing a report soon. So that'll frame the big picture. Then he'll invite Donna as a researcher and our two principals up and get in some really good conversations about how they've done what they have, and then throw it open to Q&A for you to wrap it up. So with that, Alan Richard, please come up and start the program.
Well, hi. Is there another big check back here somewhere? I can, no, all right, well. Well, good morning. I'm Alan Richard, and I'm not an expert. I don't even play one on TV, but I'm here to be the moderator and to guide the discussion among experts, our principals who will join me in a second, and Donna, the researcher who did this report that the Georgia Partnership is releasing today. And of course, now that we've introduced ourselves, I know that many of you are educators, so you're the experts, and there's going to be some time for you to weigh in, ask questions, give your views. I know we have representatives of the State Middle Schools Association. I know that someone is here from the National Forum to Accelerate Middle Grades Reform. So please weigh in and ask questions in a few minutes when we have time for that. I'm going to just give some brief opening comments about where we are with middle grades education from a policy perspective. Now, that's a very different perspective from where some of you are at the schoolhouse perspective. You're where it's at. You're where it matters every day. And I'm from the other side of the fence, where state officials sit around in conference rooms and discuss these things. But you don't hear about middle school all that much these days. Those of you who have been around a while know that the middle school concept came along a few decades ago, and we went from being really nurturing to then a sort of a backlash to be more rigorous about our academics, and now I don't really know where we are, but we hear talk about all the time about pre-K and about high school, helping more kids graduate from high school, and those things are very important priorities, helping kids learn to read by 3rd grade, that sort of thing. But a lot of times middle grades get lost in the madness of education policy discussion. And I think because of changes in our economy, if anybody hasn't noticed, it's a bit sluggish these days, that state officials are getting it. They're realizing that we can't have success in one without the other. So we're kind of waking up when it comes to middle schools. Where we are with middle schools, quite frankly, from a policy perspective, is not where we need to be. Now, we're here to celebrate success today, and so we've got some good role models to follow. There are schools that are on the right track, for sure, and we're going to learn some lessons from them today. But in terms of kind of what our nation needs, we're not quite there yet. In Georgia, for example, well, this is good news. 8 or 9 out of every 10 eighth graders meet state standards according to our state tests. And that's really great news. Now, of course, as soon as we get there, the bar is about to change, right? Middle school principals and teachers, we're about to start it all over again with the Common Core state standards and raise the standards again. I mean, I think that's a good thing. We got to keep pushing higher, but it's only going to get tougher, right? When it comes to NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the closest thing we have to a national test in this country, we don't stack up quite as well. Georgia is usually consistently just behind the U.S. and even the rest of the South, the SREB states, on 8th grade reading and math overall at the basic and proficient levels. Our Black and Hispanic students meet national averages for those groups, and they've done well for a long time. But as we know, there's a sizable gap, unfortunately, between our Black and Hispanic students and their white and Asian peers on reading and math scores. So that gap persists, even though there's some evidence of some narrowing in recent years. And there's even wider gaps by income. So what we're not only seeing is kind of gaps between racial and ethnic groups, but gaps by family income, social class, essentially. So those are some remaining challenges. Also, it's interesting to me, for somebody who barely passed algebra at all in high school, that's why I'm a word guy, that nearly 90% of Georgia 8th graders now take pre-algebra or higher by the 8th grade. And a majority of our kids take Algebra 1 by the 8th grade, which is a really big shift over the last 10 or 15 years for sure. However, our NAEP scores suggest that, for example, our 8th graders, 64% of our 8th graders in 2008, I believe, scored at the basic level in math and 8th grade math. So it suggests that maybe some of our kids aren't as well prepared for those algebra courses as they need to be. Now, there's some challenges. So what do we do about it? I staffed for SREB, my employer until about a week ago, the SREB Middle Grades Commission, and it's being chaired by Beverly Perdue, who's the governor of North Carolina. And they'll be releasing a report in the fall. But there was a lot of discussion among, and John Barge, our state superintendent, was on that commission, and so there were state superintendents, state legislators, business types from all the southern states on this group. And a lot of their discussion was about what middle schools need to do better and what we need from our middle schools into the future. So what is that? Well, it's for virtually all students to be well prepared to succeed in high school. Now, I guess for a lot of us that makes perfect sense, duh, right? Well, research tells us, though, that many teachers don't see their role in middle school as preparing kids to do well in rigorous high school courses. So we've got to help more kids prepare well for high school so that more will graduate from high school and that more students, Chancellor Huckabee, will not only enroll in college, right, and technical training too, but finish 4-year degrees, 2-year degrees, and technical certificates, which, as you know, can pay better than education or PR work, right? So, but this is new for our society. Never before, and until recently, never before have we expected virtually everybody to pursue some type of post-secondary education. I mean, that's quite a revolution in our society, especially in the South. But it's what our workforce now demands because jobs are changing. You've got to have technology skills. You've got to have communication skills. Tony Carnevale, some of you in the research community know his work at the Center on Education and the Workforce at Georgetown University. He and his researchers have found that by the year 2018, that we're going to need 22 million new 2- and 4-year degree holders in this country, plus another 4.7 people with technical certificates. And he estimates that on the college degree part, we'll be 3 million short, at least. And this is only 7 years away. So we don't have the educated workers that we're going to need to make our economy thrive. Now, some people push back against that and say, well, we don't need everybody to go to college. Well, maybe that's true. But in my view, Georgia, South Carolina, my home state, and most states, especially in the South, are in no position to be picky about who goes to college. In 2008, we have shown a lot of improvement, though. In 2008, for example, our college enrollment rate in Georgia was 72%. And that's up 12 percentage points over 10 years. So, you know, nearly 3 out of 4 kids who finish high school are going on to some kind of college. But, and those of you from higher ed know that graduation rates in higher ed are flawed, but they give us some barometer of where we are. Through 2008, for public four-year colleges, our graduation rate in Georgia was much lower than our high school graduation rate. It was 50%. That's lower than the U.S. average, and it's lower even than the average in the South. And in 2008, the percentage of Georgia adults with a bachelor's degree or higher, 27%. So really just over 1 out of 4 of us have a bachelor's degree. That's at the national average, 27%, at least for OA. That's the stat I could find. Now, of course, growing parts of our population are racial and ethnic minorities, especially Hispanic people, right? We had some awesome Latin music this morning. The college attainment rates for black adults in Georgia, 19% have a bachelor's degree. And for Hispanics, it's 13%. Well, guess what the booming populations are in our public schools, right? You know this every day. So this does not add up well. So we've got to do better. We need more college graduates, and we need, well, and college graduates, 4-year degrees, 2-year degrees, and technical certificates, graduates of various types of post-secondary education. And we need middle schools to point more students in that direction, and strongly. This means we've got to be nurturing, like the middle school concepts called for, right? And more rigorous. So we've got to be more engaging and more rigorous at the same time. We've got to build on adolescents' aspirations. Research tells us that almost every kid in middle school says that they want to go to college. Oh yeah, I plan to finish high school, I plan to finish college. No problem. Well, we know what the data is, right? We know what real life is like. So we let too many slip through the cracks. But all that said, some Georgia middle schools, probably many, but some Georgia middle schools especially are highlighted in this new partnership report and are on the right track. But their job's about to get tougher. Your job's about to get tougher, right? We got the new Common Core assessments coming online, Common Core standards rather, new state assessments, which will follow. And by the way, we are cutting your budget to death, right? So good luck with all that. No, it's going to get tougher. It's going to get tougher. But we've got some good examples of schools. You all are doing some awesome work in the audience today. And we've got we got 2 principals who are going to, and a researcher who are going to share with us on a panel some steps that they're taking to find success. So let's learn from them and let's learn from each other today. So I want to ask our panelists to make your way on up here. I'll introduce them briefly and then we'll get our discussion started. Donna O'Neill is the main researcher for the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education. Hello, Donna. She is the president of Advancing Education Incorporated. She was a teacher and administrator. She's worked for the Georgia School Boards Association. She's consulted for the Georgia Department of Education. And you've written several reports for the Georgia Partnership, including the one on high schools a couple of years ago that then led to this report on middle schools. We also have Jamil Miller-Brown. Hi, Jamil. Nice to meet you. We've talked on the phone, but we haven't met them. She's principal of Forest Park Middle School in Clayton County, not too far away. She's a mom of 2. And they have a Saturday school to help kids who are behind catch up. And she does meet and greets with every student in an effort to really try to get to know everybody in her school. So welcome, Jamil. Thanks for being here. Russell Brock. Howdy, Mr. Brock.
Hello.
He's principal of Loganville Middle School in Walton County over toward Athens. And he's an Army veteran. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here today. And so now I'm going to move, and we'll start our discussion.
Well, I'm going to open with asking Donna O'Neill to get us started. And you produced this voluminous report, frankly, which is on the web. It's on the Georgia Partnership website, so you can easily get it, and you've got a little summary in your folder. But Donna, give us the heart of the report. What's the sort of the key message or two that you want us to take away from this in terms of what middle schools are doing, what successful middle schools are doing in Georgia?
Okay. Thank you, Alan. First, I want to say that it was just a joy to work with these principals that you met this morning. They are key leaders in the state. They know what to do and how to get the job done in terms of educating students, and it was a pleasure to work with them and their faculties on this report. I guess the report overall, overarching, is that we confirmed a lot of things that we already know. We know that schooling is very complex, and it takes a comprehensive approach, effective strategies to turn a school around, to make an effective school, particularly middle schools. To change the culture of a school is very, very difficult. And we did have some of the principals that had changed the culture of their school, and it was very interesting to talk to them about how they did that. But it takes an effective, strong leader that knows what school is, what it should be, and has the skills to turn a school around and to make it an effective middle school. Let me tell you a little bit about the research, the methodology. I'll go through this very quickly. We decided that we would look at middle schools in 3 categories: high-performing, improved, and then the feeder middle schools into the 85-10 high schools. There were 4 that had clean feeder patterns that went into the high school. So we chose those 4, and then we chose 4 in each of the other categories. We identified 140 experts, national and Georgia experts, and we asked them, if you were going to do this research, what questions would you ask these principals? And I got over 145 questions back from numerous people. Many of you, some of you are sitting in the audience, and again, thank you for participating in that. And then we organized them in what I call clumps: a curriculum clump, an assessment clump, a family relationship clump, and put all those questions in those clumps. And then I interviewed the principals and some of their staff members over the phone. The total interviews were about 12 hours, about an hour each was the average, and there were 43 folks that participated in the interviews from those 12 school systems. We also had the principals to respond to some of the questions, and each principal was asked the same questions. I never got tired of asking the questions you think by the 12th school. You'd be sort of bored. It was never boring. It was always exciting to talk to them, and they have this excitement and their staffs about what they're doing and how effective they are. Let me tell you a little bit about the schools. We were always concerned that we would find schools in the 85-10 research and here that looked all alike, that they were very similar. They were very dissimilar. We had a range of sizes, 200 students up to 1,200. We had 2 urban schools, 7 suburban schools, 4 rural schools. We also had a diversity in the demography of the school. The Asian population ranged from 0% to 16%, which is quite a bit of a range because the Georgia average is 11%. Blacks, one school had 0% and one school had 80%. Hispanic, one school had 0, one school had 39%. White ranged from 4% to 97%. Another demographic we were concerned about was the economically disadvantaged, the poor children. And the diversity there in those schools, 5% were identified in one school as economically disadvantaged and 93% in another school. So you can see that these effective schools don't all look alike. what it tells us also is any school can do this. It doesn't matter what your demography is. It doesn't matter about a lot of things. But every school can do what these schools have done. Okay, let's talk about what we found. If you can turn on your right brain and conceptualize with me what these schools look like. If you'll envision a big bubble, a transparent bubble, inside that bubble is the school culture. It's caring, relationship-oriented, very high expectations for students and for faculty, and focused on learning the standards, mastery the standards. Inside that school culture, put a smaller bubble, and that bubble is the continuous improvement bubble. All of these schools, without question, emphasize continuous improvement principles, business principles that we've known have worked for years. They do teaming, vertical and horizontal teaming. Now, you'd expect that in middle school because that's what the middle school concept is about. But they also used data to make decisions. They focused their professional learning on learning for students. And they all had some sort of continuous improvement process. Many use GLISSI, 1 or 2 use backward design, plan, do, check, act. They all had, and they had the language. They knew the language, and they put all of these principles into place, mostly in their teams. Inside that bubble are several other bubbles, and these overlap. These smaller bubbles are just bathed in the continuous improvement and in the school cultures that they have. But these little bubbles are things like mission, goals, and school improvement plan. Another was curriculum, assessment, and instruction. Another was programs and interventions, programs and interventions they use for kids that were having difficulty. And these bubbles inside of this larger bubble overlap each other. It's important that we know that these schools can't do one thing and do it well. They have to do everything and do everything well that's important in terms of student achievement, and these schools did that. Within the very center where all those bubbles overlap is the graduate. The graduate comes out with that pipeline from home to pre-K to kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high school. All of those milestones are extremely important, that each one be excellent in order for the next level to build on the previous level. And these schools had that concept. They work with high schools and they work with elementary schools. We'll get into some of the details of some other things that we learned in a little while. But that bubble that these schools have surrounding these students are uniquely situated to where, and they're all focused on what they need to do and have the skills and the leadership to do it.
And I would urge you to download this report because I know most of you in the room are into this stuff like we are. But it's really got a lot of good information in it. And one of the things in the report is a list of the commonalities that these schools have. And it was interesting to me, Donna, to see that one of the groups of commonalities that every school sort of had these traits. One was applied learning, really helping kids get their arms around the work, literally in some cases, hands-on projects, stuff that matters. Second, post-secondary readiness. There really was an emphasis on helping kids see that path to some type of post-secondary education. And then third, career preparation. So that goes with the post-secondary, and really seeing how their schooling, even in middle school, connects with what they might do for work in the future. Anything you want to say about that? I know this is a surprise question, but.
This is one of the things I like to talk about. You would expect this to be in the high schools, and we did find it in the 8510 high schools, that there was a focus on post-secondary readiness and career preparedness. I was surprised to find such an emphasis in the middle schools. And these middle schools do just that. They talk about, with their students, they talk about the future, what you would need to know in terms if you wanted to be a veterinarian, if you wanted to be a nurse, what does it take? They also talked a lot about applied learning, that they take the learning of the standards in the classroom and they apply that to the real world. Why would we need to know the area of a triangle? Why would we need to know that? And they put the standards in life, and the students understand why they're learning that and why it's important. And so I was pleasantly surprised that these middle schools really do emphasize post-secondary and career readiness.
I want to ask Jamil Miller-Brown to just tell us a second about why your school works pretty well. Why are y'all doing why?
Because we're the best middle school in the state.
Well, that goes without saying, you know.
I selected 3 things. I would say first and foremost, our relationships with our students. They know that we're genuinely interested in them, that we care with them, and we spend time developing relationships with them. They work for their teachers because they know that their teachers care about them. I would say secondly, we have high expectations. We've been focused on becoming a 90-90-90 school, which is a 90% are minority, 90% are on free and reduced lunch, and we are trying to get to reach the 90% mastery of standards. Thirdly, I would say creating teacher leaders through distributive leadership, and that's evident in my leadership team being here today. If I did not have their support and buy-in, we would not have the success that we've had so far.
Russell, tell us a little bit about your school and why y'all are having some success. What's at the heart of what y'all are doing?
Well, first of all, I have a great staff. I have a great group of teachers. We have pretty good support from above in Walton County. Our school board supports us at every turn. We try to preach family atmosphere at Loganville Middle. That's something that's ingrained in our DNA. That's with the students and the teachers, as well as support workers and parents, stakeholders. We have shared vision and goals. I had a parent ask me at 8th grade at open house, a parent of an 8th grader at open house this year, she asked why we don't have 8th grade graduation. And I replied, well, the graduation we're focused on here, even though we're in the middle school, is 2016, and that's when your son will graduate from high school. And that's our goal, and we don't simply focus on the middle school, we focus on the future. We preach that to do your job. Our job as administrators, as an administrator, is to support the teachers. The teacher's job is to teach, and the students, they know their job is to learn. We preach that to the students constantly. And lastly, we have really good feeder schools. I have 3 elementary schools that feed into me, and they all 3 of them are great schools, and they do a good job as well.
Jamil, tell us a little bit about how you do school differently than a few years back. On our phone call, preparing for this panel, you mentioned that the school hadn't made adequate yearly progress on No Child Left Behind for some years. And tell me about how the school is different today that's got you more on the right track.
I would go back to the buy-in.
Don't tell me, tell them.
Okay. I would go back to the buy-in, being on one accord and being focused on a vision. Again, that's to become a 90-90 school. We have a laser-like focus on student achievement. If you walk through our hallways, it's evident in the things that you see on the hallways. When you go into the classrooms, we keep student achievement charts. The students are aware of their data. They set goals for themselves. I would say, teacher buy-in, stakeholder buy-in, a laser-like focus on student achievement, and constantly looking at the data to make adjustments.
So that goes into professional learning communities and that sort of thing?
Oh,
You said
yes.
that's a big part of your school.
We've done, definitely, professional learning communities has been a big part of our success. And those grade levels and departments where we've experienced the most success is where the teachers work together as a team. They have collaborative planning sessions every Thursday. That time is not distracted. They're committed to it, and they sit down, they look at the data. You know, if one teacher experiences success, then those strategies are shared at the table.
Now, Donna, I wanted to ask you about some specific parts of the report. What does the study tell us about the transition, that 8th grade to 9th grade transition into high school? Because as we know, and some kids drop out in middle school, but they leave in high school, right?
Right.
And so I guess that gets into some early warning signs, but also what schools actually do about helping kids make that bridge and really go to high school and and it's where they can proceed out of that 9th grade enrollment bulge that we hear so much about.
Okay, let's talk about the 8510 high schools. When I asked them the question, how is the transition from 8th to 9th grade, they thought it was extremely important for their success, that the students are prepared for high school and they know what it's going to look like, they know what it's going to feel like, because it's very different most of the time from middle school to high school, different culture, different structure, bigger school. And so most of these high schools felt that we really do need to have a good, successful transition. When I asked the middle school principals, they also said yes. It was very important that they work very hard, horizontal teaming with high school counselors, middle school counselors. One school, I think it may be Russell's, has a task force, transition task forces, that actually focus on how to get from middle school to high school. The middle school principals also said that the elementary to middle school transition was important. They didn't think that was as important as they did the middle to high school transition, but they saw that it was important to do that. In the report, we talk about the middle school bulge, and I'll show you this. This is the enrollment for the state of Georgia. Elementary, elementary, elementary. What do you think that grade is that's really big there? 9th grade. And you see then it comes back in and it settles down. What I call it is the 9th grade quicksand, that students get there and they can't get out. And why is that? One of the recommendations in the study was that we look at why there is a 9th grade bulge. Most people think it has to do with math, and it may, but we don't know what the root causes are, and we can't solve that problem until we know the root causes of why the bulge is there. So the transition, according to the principals, was very, very important to the success of the 9th graders.
Russell, will you talk a little bit about how y'all handle that transition and make sure that 8th grade graduate indeed becomes, a lot of them become high school graduates 4 years later? What do y'all do to work with the high school and that sort of thing?
Sure. We instituted, first of all, we instituted an advisement program that meets at least quarterly. Our guidance department is very active. They do a great job. And then they work seamlessly with the high school guidance department. We work hand in hand. They work hand in hand, as well as high school administration and my administration. We work hand in hand.
How do you have time to have the counselors meet with students that often?
Well, first of all, they're dedicated and they're hard workers. They work from the time they get there until the time they leave. And this is something that's a priority. It's a priority to plan for the transition to high school. We do have a transition team made up of my guidance department and the high school guidance department. They work together. In the spring, the high school guidance department comes over. They meet with every 8th grade, every rising 9th grader meets with a high school guidance counselor in the spring. So that's something we focus on in advisement. We fully use the Georgia College 411 system. We fully instituted that last year, and I just had a meeting about it yesterday. It's coming back up again this fall. We want kids to focus on the future, and that's a priority for all of our 8th graders and our 8th grade teachers.
And if I can add something to that, one of the recommendations of the study was that that the state look at research-based transition models. How can the state help the school systems using research move those students from middle to high school? And I think that would be a very big help to middle schools if we had some research-based strategies that we know work.
Jamil, what do y'all do in terms of that transition, the transitions into and out of middle school, especially out of?
To the high school level?
Mm-hmm.
That is an area work in progress for us. I think we could definitely do a better job. Going back to your presentation, and you talked about the preparation for high school and the minorities that aren't pursuing their college educations, I would see our most important contribution is that we're equipping them with those basic skills, because when they come to us from our elementary schools, they're not where they need to be. So our focus on student achievement is definitely one contributing factor that we do. I do think we need more research-driven transition programs, and as I prepared for this, I thought about it. We need to have maybe two scheduled meetings per semester that we go to the elementary schools or to the high schools. Right now, it's kind of sporadic, so that's something that we need to focus more on.
Okay. And Donna, you cite in the report that there's a lot of research emerging about how to identify dropouts earlier and earlier, even in the beginning middle grades or even late elementary grades. I know Johns Hopkins has been doing some stuff on this. Talk about that a little bit and what you address in the report around, what we can do to identify kids who are behind better and help them move along.
This was one area that the principals felt was very weak, the high school principals as well, that they did not do a good job of identifying potential dropouts. I asked them, what strategies do you use? Only one middle school had a formal process, one that they had created, by the way, that was a point system for risk factors. The state, and it's in the report, has a list of risk factors, 23 of them in fact, but there's no weight to them. It's not, is one more important than the other? Is a magic number 5 or is a magic number 3 that identifies you as a potential dropout? And so the middle schools and the high schools felt that they didn't do a good job of identifying potential dropouts. Most of the middle schools said, well, we just take the records from the elementary school, and if they thought they were potential dropouts or struggling, then we thought they would be too. So one of the strong recommendations in the research is to develop locale-specific longitudinal data systems where schools and school systems can enter profiles of their dropouts so that they can more precisely predict the dropouts in the future. There was an interesting twist that you would be, you should know about. GLSSI and the leadership of GLSSI with Atlanta Public Schools, Gwinnett Public Schools, SERVE, and the Department of Education are working on a success factors list. And they've just flipped from looking at risk factors to success factors. And they are developing a list of success factors at each stage along the way, that pipeline that we talk about. What are those factors that say this student is going to be successful? This student is going to be successful in graduating from high school in 4 years, going to post-secondary and being successful in a 2-year program and then also in a 4-year program. So it's very exciting work. And the interesting thing that teachers and administrators will like is that those success factors can be applied to individual students. So a teacher can get a roster of her students and look at the success factors of each student. So it's fascinating work that they're doing.
And when you're done, yeah, go ahead.
Forest Park Middle School is one of 3 middle schools in Clayton County that was identified for a Systems of Care grant, and that grant basically identifies, I don't think we got an opportunity to share in the interview, but it identifies students that have those characteristics. They're at risk to drop out in high school. And basically, the 4 characteristics that they look at are their student achievement scores, their attendance, their behavior, and their grades. And I believe the grant may be a total of $100,000. They do an assessment. The parents have to agree for their participation, and they are placed on a treatment plan, and it follows them throughout their high school career. And the services are provided by contractors with juvenile.
So what kind of services do they get?
Oh, they get counseling, psychological services, parent counseling, tutoring, computers. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask y'all about was, what when you identify kids and may be behind or look to have the profile of a dropout, you have all these TV shows now where you profile the criminal and the mass murderer and everything. It makes me paranoid. But it's kind of like profiling the dropout. That kid looks like he's headed for that direction. So what do you do about it? Tell him a little. You've got this intervention going on. What other things are y'all doing to intervene and try to get kids back on track?
We love on them first and foremost. I think they feel safe and secure at our school. Our school serves as a haven. As a middle school, it's based on the teaming concept. So when we get together at our team meetings in those professional learning communities, we take time to sit and talk about those students. It's not uncommon for us to do home visits. We have a parent liaison that makes regular visits when students are frequently absent. So just basically, it's not maybe, other than the systems of care, it's nothing formal. It's just, it's part of the culture at our school.
Russell, what do y'all do in terms of interventions?
The first thing we did was we streamlined our school day. We cut down transition time between classes, less time in the morning. As you all in this room know, the more free time middle schoolers have, the more trouble they can get in. So this was a 2-pronged approach. We cut down a lot of wasted time, and we created a 30-minute period every morning We call it Devil Achievement Time. Our mascot is the Red Devils. During that time, it's teacher-driven, it's by team. Kids get whatever remediation they may be needing at the time, or if they're doing well, or if they're a gifted child, they will get whatever acceleration they need. And nobody knows that better than their 4 academic teachers, and they handle that within their teams. We even take our connections teachers who are on planning at that time, or specials as they're known in elementary school. They actually team teach with the academic content teachers for the remediation. That way we lower the student-teacher ratio for those kids that need the remediation. That's one of the main things we do. We also use multiple criteria to identify at-risk kids. We're a Title I targeted assistance school, so one of the ways we identify our targeted assistance kids is through a multiple criteria point system. But like Donna said, in no means is it scientifically based. It's something we came up with. My special ed coordinator, who's actually here in the audience today, helped me do it. And that's how we identify, but a scientifically based formula would be a great tool to identify at-risk kids.
Now, we're all trying to do better in this room in an environment where money to work with is not as abundant as it was a few years ago. What impact are the state budget cuts, and in some cases local budget cuts, having on your schools and affecting your work?
Well, in Walton County, it's approaching crippling, to be honest with you. And our local Board of Education has done everything they can to support us. They've raised the millage rate, actually, the last 2 years to help offset some of the state budget cuts. But with that said, they're about out of millage rate room. We're on a 160-day calendar. We cut 20 school days off the year. We're not picking up kids on the school bus anymore within three-quarters of a mile of the school, and next year it's going to go out to 1.5 miles because we can't afford it. With that said, we try to make lemonade out of lemons, so to speak. The good thing about it is I think teachers are a little more focused on the 160-day calendar. They know they have less time to get things done, a little less fluff in the classroom. We also have an extra hour after school where teachers work an extra hour after kids are gone. They're on a 9-hour work day. We took full advantage of that. Every teacher has to offer tutoring 2 days a week, so that helps. We're tutoring on the clock, basically. And the other 3 days a week we use for collaborative planning, team meetings, grade level meetings, department meetings. And so that's really contributing to a lot more teamwork. And so that's really the only 2 bright spots I can come up with out of the budget cuts. Other than that, we're just surviving, really.
Yeah. How about y'all, Jamil? Anything you want to say about that?
Okay. We have a theme, and it is doing more with less. So that's my response to that, doing more with less.
Yeah. One of the things that Donna found in this report in doing the research is that not one size fits all, that there's some overarching themes, some of these things that commonalities that these schools, y'all schools in this report have, but that the solution solution for a specific problem in one school maybe isn't the right solution in another. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you saw from the numbers that I quoted the diversity of the schools that were in the program, in the research. And you can imagine if you have 0% Hispanic students, your school might look one way. If you have 37, 39%, it might look and do different things. Good schools analyze what the kids need, and then they try to provide that as best they can. Academically and socially, personally, many of these schools used advisement program and counseling program as mechanisms to get to that, making school personal to every student, making sure that every student felt welcome, Jamil said safe, and that somebody cares. One school, they went back on days that they got report cards, they went back to their first block at the end of the day. That was their advisement. And they talked about their report cards, what they were doing, what was working, what was not working, what they were going to do better the next grading period. And that kind of focus, one-on-one focus, really does help to make the school unique based on the characteristics of the students. So they all did overarching things that were very important, but they also looked at what they needed, what they had, and then they adapted very well to that.
you know, it all comes down to what's happening in the classroom, the teaching that's going on. So let's talk about curriculum and instruction and classroom assessment for a second. Principals, what kinds of things do you have cooking in your schools that you think really make a difference? What is that book that came out some years ago, Teaching with Your Hair on Fire? My little cousin is a principal in South Carolina. He's early bald like me, and so I guess he already did that. But talk a little bit about, you know, what goes on in y'all's classrooms and what you think may be a little different about your schools as opposed to some of your neighboring schools.
Well, I know at Loganville Middle, as I said before, we preach doing your job. The kids know it's their job to learn. The teachers know it's their job to teach. As far as curriculum, that's our framework. GPS or enhanced GPS is coming. That's the framework, and our teachers are standards-based, and they focus on the front. And like I said, with the 160-day calendar, they are laser-focused on GPS because they don't have time to do anything else. And they're doing all they can to get that in 160 days. We believe instruction is what we're about. That's what we're at school for. That's what everybody's job is focused on. And we believe in assessment for instruction, not assessment of instruction. It's not what you... when a teacher gets test results back, they need to look at the data. What did I do good? What did I do bad? What can I do better? What did the kids not learn? And take that feedback from the assessment and use it to reteach or to move on or use it in the future. That is assessment for instruction, and we feel like that's the kind of assessment we want going on in our building.
What about you, Jamil? What do you want to say about teaching in your school?
I agree with what Russell said. I think the most important piece, of course, we have the standards-based classrooms with the standards driving our instruction. The assessment, continuously looking at what's worked, what's not working. Are the students mastering the standards? And one of the big, when I met with my leadership team in preparation for this, we talked about some of these things. And they felt like our data room is a big contributing factor to some of our success.
Your data room?
Yes, it's called like our war room. And that's where we have our professional development sessions. And each student in our building is on this wall. And we're not violating any laws, as Russell thought, because teachers just go into the classroom.
I was just curious.
We have a law called
now,
FERPA.
Now student 0111788, now he's trouble. Yeah.
So each student is listed, and we track their performances on the common assessments, and it's a visual, and it's color coded, so you can easily see and look and see, this is working, this is not working. So I would say that assessment piece and continuously referring to the data.
But in this age of standards and assessments and accountability and everything else falling on top of your head,
if I could add one thing
Oh yeah,
to
Donna,
that.
sorry.
It was interesting interviewing these schools. They saw curriculum, instruction, and assessment, pretty much like Russell said, as one thing. They didn't see it as three different things. It was one thing that impacted student learning. And it was very much a cycle. You teach the standards, you assess for mastery. If there's mastery, you move on to the next standards. If there's not mastery, you reteach. And it's very much, teaching is very circular in that regard. And these schools got it, that curriculum, assessment, and instruction were the same thing.
And in this age, though, of accountability and standards and assessments and that sort of thing, and this is my last question, by the way, and then the audience will be invited to join us. How do you provide a laser-light focus on improving student achievement without making school a series of drill sheets that bore students and that sort of give an undue emphasis just on test scores?
Well, at Loganville Middle, we focus on creating engaging work, and there's actually someone here in the audience, Judy Henry, works with the Page High School Redesign Initiative, which we're a part of as a middle school, and our high school is a part of as a high school. And what that our teachers focus on engaging work. We don't believe in drill and kill. I don't believe in teaching the test. I tell my teachers, teach the curriculum, teach what you're supposed to teach the standards, and the test scores will come on their own. And that's what we do, and it's working for us anyway.
And Jamil, in our conference call, you said that it was all about balance. So you got a data room, but it was still all about balance. Yes. Kind of what? It's kind of the data room with heart, or what is it?
I think what I was speaking about is that you were asking what I think about No Child Left Behind and the mandates of it. I said that I think, it has to be a balance, because at the end of the day, we do have to show results, but we need to have the kids first and foremost and make sure that those lessons are engaging, they have real life application, and that we're putting them first and foremost. I would say that, and also No Child Left Behind, one thing that's ignored, you talking about during our conversation, is that it had the two positive things that I see in it is that we no longer can ignore those students, the special education students or the ELL students. It makes us, it forces our hands in making sure that those students have those same opportunities. So that's why I think it's important to have a balance. It's not all bad, the CRCT and preparation for that.
But one more thing, and then we'll get to the Q&A. Russell, you mentioned that the AYP, the way it's calculated and that sort of thing, has really been tough for y'all. Describe your situation as our state policymakers think about these things, and as our members of Congress hopefully eventually will redo the No Child Left Behind Act.
Well, I'll use us for an example. We're performing at 90% or above, or right at it, in every subject level, every grade level. We do have a special education subgroup, and this year, of course, they took away interim flexibility, which basically the state raised the bar on special education meet-exceed rates on the CRCT 17% in 1 year. We were able to raise them 16.4%. We were 0.6% of a special ed student away from making AYP this year. So we didn't make it. We missed it by part of one special ed student, which was disheartening. But I look at my staff and say, you improved special ed pass rates as much as you did, 16%. I'm not going to be stuck on that. But that kind of illustrates the. I don't want to use the word ridiculousness of the law, but that's pretty much what it is. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when we're performing the way we are as a school and we're labeled as not meeting AYP.
Okay, let's get our audience involved. We have people with microphones, and so tell us what you think or ask a question. It's a little hard for me to see with these lights. It's like American Idol up here or something. Who's good? Come on now. Here's a couple of questions over here. And tell us who you are when you ask your question, please.
Good morning. Gail Holm from Gillespie. I'd like to ask our two outstanding principals to talk to us a little bit about the conditions that you create for teacher success. You obviously are both very proud of your teacher leaders. Tell us about the conditions that's your responsibility to create for teachers.
Okay. Conditions for my teachers to be successful. Most importantly, they need to feel supported. When they have an issue or concern with a student, it needs to be addressed immediately. You need to validate their concerns. Most importantly, have follow-through. I think that's a big piece that we miss when we don't have follow-through. That in and of itself just communicates the value of teachers. Offering professional development so that they can continue to hone their craft. We have an in-house and giving them opportunities, I would say, to work in their strengths.
Gail, at Loganville Middle, we try to create conditions for teacher success in various ways. My firm belief is that happy teachers teach. Angry teachers don't. So staff morale is a big deal at our school. It's a big deal in our county. Our superintendent has made it clear that he wants us to do all we can to keep teacher morale up, and that's something we work on every day. With that said, we support teachers at every turn. Discipline-wise, we want to establish consistent discipline, and 99.9% of the time, the teacher's always going to be right, and they appreciate that, at least initially. And if they were wrong, then we'll address that later in private. But a teacher's always going to be right when it comes with a discipline issue. I think that's very, very important. But without discipline, nothing else is going to happen in your school. No learning is going to take place if you don't have discipline. And as long as you support your teachers on discipline, they're happy, and you support them academically, give them the tools they need. And anything my teachers ask for, I do my best to get it. I can't always do it. I got a math teacher right now that wants $19,000 worth of CRCT coach books. That's not happening because we don't have the money. But if I could get it, I would. So we do our best to support them at every turn. And really, that's I consider that my job. I am a support mechanism for the teachers. So.
Thank you. My name is Orrin Hudson. I run a youth development program called Be Someone. I use the ancient game of chess to teach young people how to think strategically about their future. I know when I was in middle school, the turning point in my life is when I entered high school. There was a white teacher there that taught us how to play chess, and it motivated everyone else to come to school. I mean, we would get to school there at 7. He said come in at 7 a.m. and we'd be there at 7 a.m. and it kind of kept me in school. I mean, because 4 of my family members dropped out of school, but the turning point that kept us and a lot of my co-workers, co-classmates, was that the teacher made learning fun, and he, taught us chess and decision-making skills. So my grades started going up. I started making good decisions and stuff like that. And so I started doing that last year at Stevenson High School. And I noticed how when I was working with the kids, I say, oh, you guys come in 6:30 a.m. and they'll be there. And so what am I saying? I'm saying that I think one of the ways we can improve the dropout rate is to make learning fun. And my assignment in life is to do all I can to teach young people, make learning fun, and to use chess to teach them how to think and solve problems.
I'm Sally Fitzgerald with the League of Women Voters, excuse me, and Georgia PTA. The children spend more time away from school in a 24-hour period than in school. How did you mobilize your parents and the homes of these children to help you in the climate and cultural and academic changes that you wanted to make?
Well, Sally, at Loganville Middle, we face the same battle every middle school does. Parents tend to disengage once they leave elementary school. We do have a very active PTSO. With that said, though, it's a core group of probably 5 to 10 parents, and I have 1,200 students. So you figure 2,400 biological parents and probably another 400 or 500 step parents or guardians in the picture, and I've probably got 5 or 10 people that really work hard at PTO. So that's a constant challenge for us, and to be honest with you, it's something we try to improve on constantly, and it's something we need to improve on. With that said, we have open house specifically for 6th grade parents. They're probably the most needy, the ones that haven't had a middle school student before. We try to meet with them a lot. We do have regular PTO meetings. We try to get parents in after football games and things like that, things that bring them to the campus anyway. But to be honest with you, that's a challenge. I think probably if there's a middle school not facing the challenge of disengaging parents, I'd like to talk to their people to see how they're doing that, because it's really, really a struggle. And even my PTO president would tell you, she does it, and she comes and she works really hard, but she's forcing herself to, not like she says it's different than when her kids were in elementary school. She just doesn't feel the same toward her kids, and I think that's an attitude prevalent throughout our society, and I really don't know, I don't have a solution for that.
No, we've discussed this. Parental involvement is an issue for us as well. Most of our PTSO meetings, my staff outnumbers the parents that are at the PTSO meetings. We have had success with having evening programs. Towards the end of the year, we had our last awards program at night, and we had the largest parent attendance that we've had in the past 4 years, so that's something that we will continue as well.
I don't want you to take my comments as negative. Our stakeholders are very supportive. It's just as far as actually getting them into school and getting them actively involved is difficult to do with a middle school age kid, and probably, I know it is just as hard in high school as well.
Without exception, each school interviewed said we really need to do a better job of that. This is a place where we need to improve.
And I'll put in a plug for a group I'm advising called Parents for Public Schools. It's based in Mississippi. It has chapters all over the country, and they do a lot of parent engagement work based on the Pritchard Committee model out of Kentucky, where they do a lot of training for parents, and they're finding that a lot of parents want to participate, but maybe can't make it work schedule-wise, or maybe don't know how if they're sort of disenfranchised from schools and that sort of thing. Who's next? Yes. Hey.
In addition to the parental involvement, can you talk a little bit about any of your partnerships from business, community organizations, as well as anything relative to your school council and any business leaders, and then how can we all learn from you or what you would like?
Oh, yeah. Our biggest supporter has been the Kiwanis Club. And with the budget cuts, we're really going to depend heavily on them this year. We had Saturday school last year in October and went through March, and they provided the financial support we needed for snacks and so forth. So I would say the Kiwanis is one of our biggest supporters. Again, that's something that we could do more in the area of as well.
We have a very active partner and education program with local businesses. Like I just said, our community is very supportive. And a lot of them cannot donate money, but they can donate services. We have landscapers that landscape our school because, to be honest with you, the county budget doesn't allow our maintenance department strapped. So those kind of things help out a lot as far as just establishing ties in the community with businesses.
We've got people watching us online, and there's a couple of questions actually from people who are watching the online stream. One is from Sandy Baxter with Communities and Schools, and she says, how do you use community resources, for example, Communities in Schools, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, mentoring, Partners in Education, Be Someone? Have any of these programs helped with your success?
Yes, I mean, Partners in Education are like I said, that's a big deal for Loganville Middle. We're also partnered, as I mentioned before, with the Page School Redesign Initiative, and they're a huge supporter with staff development. As a matter of fact, I told my superintendent earlier today and my curriculum director, if it wasn't for the Page HSRI, we would not have any outside staff development at all because we have no Title II budget to do staff development with. So. Wow.
Anything you want to say, Jamila? Do y'all have a group like that that's helping?
Other than the organizations that help with our grant with Systems of Care, and there's several agencies that support that, and so they've been instrumental in creating those treatment plans and following up with the students weekly.
Don, is there anything to add on that? No. And there's one more question from online from Angela Hurtado. I hope I can't read this writing, sorry. How do you target Hispanic students and help them stay in school? That's a huge, very quick growing population in Georgia.
And my ELL teacher is in the audience, so sitting on pins and needles probably is what I'm gonna say. But 39% of our student population is Hispanic, and to be honest with you, they do extremely well academically. They outperform some of our other subgroups. We have a bilingual parent liaison. Well, we did have one last year. That position was not funded this year. We were able to retain her in another capacity. So she's been able to develop some relationships with the community. But they do extremely well. Their parents are really involved in middle school. I'm not sure how that carries on in high school. But again, I think it's someplace that they feel welcomed in coming. And there was somebody in the audience that I wanted to make a connection with today, representing the Latin Association, to see if she has some additional ideas as well.
At Loganville Middle, we have a very, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's let Russ, okay, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What was your question?
I wanted to touch base with you following the program to get to just use you as a resource and see what services you could provide for our school.
Definitely.
All these principals are just like that.
I'm sorry, definitely afterwards we can definitely connect.
Okay. At Loganville Middle, we have a very small Hispanic population. With that said, they do perform on par with all our other subgroups, with white and black. Most of our ELL population, believe it or not, is Eastern European right now. We have a lot of influx from that area. Really, at our school, economically disadvantaged of any race is our biggest concern. We don't really have an achievement gap. Last year, my African American students scored a little bit higher on 8th grade math than did my Caucasian students. So we're proud that there is no achievement gap. And that's something we work hard for. So as far as Hispanic performance, they're right on par with everybody else.
Well, let me ask my own question here based on that. I mean, that's awesome, but everybody else seems to have an achievement gap. How are you doing that? That's great.
Well, like I said, our feeder elementary schools do a great job. We don't look at kids as race or subgroup. All we look at kids, they're just students, and my teachers have that attitude, and they hold every kid to the same standard, no matter who they are.
I have a comment, and
tell us who you are too.
What's that?
Tell us who you are.
Okay, Sam Sweat, Fayette County Schools. I just want to applaud the two principals for the job you're doing. Just the comment, I really like what you all said and Donna said about identifying at-risk factors of students that are in danger of not graduating or dropping out, that 9th grade bulge. My question is for you all, because I know we can do that, but you've got to really make it a priority and get with those middle schools and high schools and pair them up with vertical teaming. What are y'all doing from elementary to middle, and how are you targeting your 6th grade students who are behind? And do you use those factors for those kids?
We do address that. My 6th grade teachers are placed in the 6th grade really based on personality and teaching style. We want that to be a gentle transition from 5th to 7th. That's very deliberate teaching assignment there. We do have a 6th grade orientation. We do have every 5th grader that feeds into my school. They come over in the spring. They tour the entire school. We do an assembly. And they leave behind a representative from every class who spends an entire day at the middle school so they can go back and reassure their classmates that they're not getting shoved in lockers and trash cans and that sort of thing. So we try to make them feel comfortable. I think the big thing with 6th grade, with rising 6th graders and with the parents that have never been through it as well, is just anxiety more than anything. So we try to make them feel comfortable. We segregate our 6th grade. They're as best I can. I'm in an older building, but I do make sure my 6th grade students are all in one area together all day. The only exception would be when they go to a connections class. So we try to keep them isolated as much as possible.
And I'll just say, in addition to that, this is our 2nd year. We host a summer orientation for the 6th grade students. We've been able to pay for it with title funds, and they spend 3 days. And this year we had approximately 50 students to attend. So that's been very helpful as well.
I'm sorry, they come 3 times?
They come 3 days during the summer, and we've had it, this is the 2nd.
During the summer?
They come 3 days during the summer from 9 until 12 o'clock, and this is the 2nd year that we've had it.
One school planned a scavenger hunt for rising 6th graders in their school. Thought that was interesting.
I have a question for Donna. You mentioned, my name's Lanari Kingdon with Achieve Greater Success. You mentioned that there is one school that assigned points to the 23 risk factors. Are you comfortable to tell us that, or where we could connect with that school and learn more?
One of the things that part of the protocol with these schools was that individual answers would not be presented. We wanted the frankness and the openness to answer the question. So we did list in one of the appendices all of the schools, their contact information, et cetera. But in terms of the body of the research, we just talk about one school or several schools or the majority of schools or the improved schools or the feeder pattern schools. And we don't identify them personally, but let me take your card and I can make that happen probably. Be sure to find me after the meeting.
Okay. My name is Gwen Tucker. I'm with the Warren County School System. I don't have a question or anything, but I just want to make a comment. Even though our middle school did not make the criteria for the research study that was done, but our middle school is a Title I high poverty middle school, and in the state that have been able to maintain AYP for 9 consecutive years.
Congratulations.
And I think, yes, thank you. And I think that has been due to the dedication and commitment of the teachers that we have in the classroom.
I'm supposed to ask everybody what a closing thought, keys to your success, something you'd like, somewhere you'd like to go next in terms of improvement. Go ahead.
Just continue. Where we like to go next, our focus for this year is basically, again, continued professional development and making sure that we use our in-house talents to continue to improve student achievement and learn how to do more with less.
Our goal is to continue to maintain a positive atmosphere in the school, continue to go toward our common goals, upward trajectory with all our test scores, and continue to improve on our teacher teamwork despite all the obstacles thrown at us. right now.
Absolutely. Don, anything you want to say in closing?
Yes, these schools had the attitude of continuous improvement, as I mentioned earlier. Even though we patted them on the back and said what a good school they are and interviewed and that kind of thing, they all, at the very end, always asked what the challenge is, what's in the future for you. Everyone said we have a long way to go. Even when you have an 87, 90% graduation rate from high school, and the middle school pushes that along, you still have 10% of the students not graduating. So our work is not done and the 85-10 high schools knew that our work, even though we might lead the state, we might be in the top echelon of the state in terms of graduation rate, we still have a lot of work to do because we have kids dropping out of school.
Well, I've always said that, you know, every school can improve, and the ones that really are improving are the ones who really know that and put that to good use. So thanks, Russell and Jamil, for sharing your thoughts today. And Donna, thanks so much for your report. Remember, it's on the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education website. So thank you. Let's thank our panelists, and I'm going to turn it back over to Ann.
Thank you, Alan.
So Alan and Jamila, Russell and Donna, I've been inspired by you. And you are, as we all know, in the middle school area, a very difficult place. And, oh yes, thank you. You're in a very difficult place, but you have found some solutions that are very effective, and we're very grateful to you, as well as to all of our middle school representatives who are here today. Let's give them all another round of applause. And I think, as you now, Superintendent Barge, who's here, as well as Chancellor Huckabee, it's so wonderful to have you here because as a critical component of what's going on, you can hear what success sounds like. And of course, what we all want is that to be replicated in every community across this state, if not this country. But we would love for Georgia to be leading the way, and your leadership is critical to that. So we thank you both very, very much. We also thank our colleagues from AT&T who have underwritten this extraordinary research, as they did with the high school last year, and as you heard, for the 2 new projects that we'll be embarking on now. And we'd love to have any of you who is a part of the partnership while I continue the conversation. But what I loved about how you all presented this, and of course I'm a bit biased since this is my vision too, is that our whole approach with the Georgia Partnership under Dr. Dolinger's leadership is that every one of us has as our job one to create that climate, right, Miss Gail, create the climate so that every child in our state can succeed. And yes, that might look good on tests, but what it does look good is in life, and it's how we are a part of that process that's critical, and our schools are such a critical component. So we're proud for the Georgia Partnership to be a part of this journey, thrilled with the middle school report, so thank you to you, and Donna, great job. It is online, right, Alan? All of us can get that information, download, tell your friends.
And it's only 30 pages. The, the appendices are about 100. But the first 30 pages are the most important.
And then is the most important for me is you, that you're here, that those of you who've joined us online for the first time as our streaming video, is that it's so critical that all of us be as supportive, don't give up, don't let down, stay the course, expect excellence, and know that every child can learn and succeed. And that's sort of who we are and what we stand for across every sector of our community. Be listening out for our next program. And the forum is a critical way for all of us to come together at such a significant time. Now is the time, and it is we who get to do the work. So thank you all so much. And to a panel, enjoy your day. Pick up materials off the table. Steve? Done.